How's it going, everybody? Welcome to this GameXplain discussion. I'm Joey, this is Bobby from Console Creatures, and today we're talking full-on spoilers for Bayonetta 3. But first, I wanted to have Bobby on this video because he reviewed the game for the website. Give us some brief thoughts of how you felt about this game.
Overall, I did like it. It's a great action game. It's a pretty good Platinum Games title, but the ending kind of was squandered on me. And I just don't know how I feel about it so far. Like, I've been back and forth over this last week with Joey, and I can't decide if I like it or I hate it.
I did a video on it too, just the other day, or just yesterday actually, as of recording this. And the more I dissected it, the more I was kind of just like, this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And you know, a lot of people would tell me like, Joey, you don't really play Bayonetta for the story. And I'm like, that's partly true. You play it because it's a fun action game. And that's exactly what Bayonetta 3 is. But, you know, Bayonetta 1 and 2 still had some fascinating stuff going for it. There's some interesting lore with the Umbra Witches and the Lumen Sages. They did some interesting time travel stuff in Bayonetta 2. But in 3, it's like they kind of just went a different direction here with the homunculi. That's more of a sci-fi angle. And I think that it was a cool angle for the most part. But when it came to the final act, I did feel that it sort of just kind of fell on its face a little bit. And when, even though the game isn't focused on story, it's still hard to ignore the missteps that it takes in the ending. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. I was more interested in Bayonetta 3 just because, like we said, the story never made sense. It was never like a critical step to enjoy these games, but it started off really strong. I liked, you know, the introduction of the multiverse being a full focus this entry, and like I liked the different Bayonettas, but as you got deeper into the chapters, it started like just spewing out like just narrative diarrhea. I have to call it that because that's what it felt like. It just didn't start making less sense as you got in. Like you said, the lore is really cool. Like the Umbran Witches and the Lumen Sages are really interesting. I would have loved to let them, you know, just focus on that, but instead they treated this like a new entry, like a stepping point for newcomers, and I think that's what kind of shot them in the foot. Is they, instead of naturally continuing the progress of the storyline, they threw that away and just made it, you know, a stepping stone for everybody. But like that's kind of that just ruined everything for me. It should have leaned heavily into the lore and just finished the trilogy as intended, and then started off strong with the fourth game.
I agree. They made some controversial decisions here, and you know, I like it when companies take risks in general. I think like a lot of stories play it too safe, but you know, there's still consequences to not playing things safe, and this is kind of one of them. And I know a lot of people will disagree with us on this, and you know, that's fair. That's totally fair, because let's summarize briefly what happens at the end of this game. Luca's a werewolf for some reason, which is still kind of like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I also think that's part of the stuff that doesn't really need to make sense. If you want to make Luca a werewolf, go ahead, do it. Like, I don't care. But ultimately it is revealed that Viola in the most... First of all, we need to talk about this. It turns out Viola is the daughter of Luca and Bayonetta, and it's just like, or Cereza, because, you know, now she has the family name Bayonetta. It's revealed at the end. They didn't do a good job of keeping that mystery. I felt like I saw that coming, like from, at least not from the beginning, but like in the middle, maybe I figured it out. I was just like, okay, obviously.
Well, it didn't help they alluded to it from the beginning. Like it was thrown at your face from, I say, even chapter 2 or 3. But what I didn't understand is it whose version of, like, whose daughter is this? Is this like Prime Bayonetta? Is this Bayonetta 2's? Is this Bayonetta 3's daughter? Like, they didn't tell us. And then to make it worse, it's just like, I understand why they put her in the game, but like what purpose does she serve? She didn't really do much. She just kind of like aloofed around. Like, she was comic relief for the most part. She didn't really do anything. And that's what kind of threw me off her, like, her character. Like, it was definitely a mix of Luca and Bayonetta. Like, you could tell, like the joking segments where she was like with the clav on her face, that was Luca. But when she was fighting, that was obviously Bayonetta's personality shining out. I just don't know what like the inclusion was, what they thought.
Yeah,
she would do.
I was talking to Mitchell from IGN about this on our review discussion, he was fond of Viola. And I think Viola will kind of have a mixed reaction from fans because there's people who find her endearing because she is an Umbran witch in training. She's a goofball. There's a part where she gets her pants caught on fire and stuff. She's got so much energy, and that is part of her charm, of course. But it all depends on how you feel about that charm. As for me, I'm kind of with you there. I wasn't a huge fan of her as a character. I felt like her being a klutz was sort of just, I don't know, tropey. Like it wasn't. 100%. It was super two-dimensional, and her purpose throughout the game I get, but also it's, I don't know, she doesn't really, even though the game tells you she goes through growth at the end. Like they straight up tell you, like, for someone who's grown so much, Viola, it's time that you inherit a new name or whatever. But you don't get that sense at the very end, because at the very end, I know we're going all over the place, but I still want to talk about this more, because at the very end, when she's at Rodin's bar, like she's earned the family name Bayonetta from passing her final test, she still clearly has growing to do, because she summons her sword, like God of War style, right? Yeah. But like she misses it, and then it just breaks a bunch of stuff, and then her scarf keeps getting in her face, and yeah, it doesn't feel like she goes through a whole lot of growth.
Mechanically, she's a great character to play as, but
super good to play as.
Her role in the game, it felt shoehorned in. I think Camille was saying like he just finished writing the game not even that long ago. It was like a year ago. So I think I think it was like 2021. He was saying like he may have gone through rewrite. We may have just seen something change, but who knows, right? I mean, that's just my speculation. She didn't feel like she belonged in the game to me, but I understand why she was there after finishing the game. Why they decided to put her in, and where they want to take her.
And talking about what else happens at the end, finding out like she is the daughter of Bayonetta and Luca, and I know people have their thoughts about those two being together. The thing that gets me is that it is strange, of course, because we got the multiverse here. So really, in which universe is Viola from? Like you said, like which multiverse version of Bayonetta and Luca like conceived her, right? And also, it doesn't really feel like they were hinting in the first two games at a romance between the two. So it's not like people were essentially rooting for these two to be together. Bayonetta was kind of flirty with him, I guess, but you couldn't tell she was like in love with the man,
It's weird. I mean, she was always painted as a bi character, and I mean, It's been a while since I played the first Bayonetta, but I'm pretty sure like I at least flirted with him, but I know she had maybe some kind of feelings toward it. It was more like a subtle thing. You didn't really catch on to it, but I don't know. It's hard to place it without replaying it. I only replayed Bayonetta 2 just in the lead up to this, so it's hard to say what they decided to do. But I mean, from what I remember, at least, like it does line up with what I remember.
Right. I wasn't too shocked when I found out that they got together. I didn't think it was too jarring at first, but the more I thought about it and talked about it with others, I'm like, okay, that is kind of weird.
That's the thing. As you play it and then you think about it, it's like, yeah, why? Like, why did they do that? Because I mean, Bayonetta 2 was obviously Cereza and Jean. Like that was the big thing. Her, getting back to her friend, and canonically, I think they're saying like those two are a pair. It just feels like they just threw ideas at the wall and whatever kind of stuck they wrote into the game, to me personally, and that's where all this kind of led. And I just don't know how I feel about it. I still don't know how I feel about it. I'm thinking about it right now, and I just don't know if I like that pairing. But for a franchise, they gotta make some kind of idea to push the next game, right? I mean, this kind of seemed like the only way to get to that next game.
The more I watched this cutscene, because I edited that ending explained video, the more I watched the cutscene where Bayonetta freaking dies, right? And gets dragged to hell. I don't think Luca was gonna die, but I guess he was gravely injured at the end because he couldn't see. Maybe that the attack that he did blinded him. I'm not sure.
That makes sense. That's the thing. It's like what was his role in the end? Like you saw, obviously, like, he gets hit, whatever, blah blah. But like, it didn't look like it was that bad to me, at least. Yeah. And now suddenly he's dead. Okay, but yeah, I mean,
he goes to hell with Bayonetta, and I'm not quite sure about that. And then. But then you get the multiverse into this, which even more is confusing, because it's like, were those, because it's not, Viola's from another universe, right? So so are her parents really dead? I mean, I guess they died in her original universe and they died here too. So I guess that kind of answers that a little bit. But it's implied, I guess, by the appearance of Bayonetta 1 Bayonetta and 2 Bayonetta, that universes that Singularity destroyed are now coming back. I guess that's what I understood from his dialogue. And that moment, let's talk a bit about that moment first. Just having Bayonetta 1 Bayonetta and Bayonetta 2 Bayonetta come in for a Spider-Man No Way Home climax. At first that was cool, but it would have been cooler if maybe Helena Taylor played those characters. But now it's like, whatever, now that controversy happened, so we knew it's just not even on the table there.
That controversy just threw out like a brick into a window and smashed the house that PG built. But like it was bad mechanically and like gameplay wise. It's a cool little nod to the previous games. I like how they add the UI from those games when you're playing as that character. But then everything else just stopped making sense once Bayonetta 3 absorbed them. I think she absorbed them at least, right? And then, yeah, so like I don't know if they at that point died or like they went back to the universe. I don't know how it works. It doesn't make sense to me if that seal a gateway or like what. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like they were never really explained. That's from what is, nothing was explained.
Yeah, from what I understood, because I think they get knocked out of her by Singularity, and then they vanish. So that seemingly implies they did go back to their own universes, whatever that entails.
Another thing, I just don't know, like what if like the Singularity, that's another thing, it was never really explained. Maybe I missed it, but I never really understood who the Singularity was.
They didn't do a good job explaining the homunculi in general. They just appeared, and yeah, that's another thing, they had so much potential to be really cool villain. Because angels and demons, we know about them, we know their origins, we don't need an explanation. He introduced a new villain who's man-made, like completely made by humans, but they have godlike powers. That's super cool and interesting, and then they just don't explore that.
Yeah, like there was just so much potential in there, and I'm like, and the entire time I'm like, my guess was always going to be Bayo 1 was the main villain. It was just like a corrupted version of her, and then it turns out that's not true at all. It was just some random guy. I can't remember who he was. I thought it was like a version of Luca, but it wasn't even Luca. It was just some random guy.
It was some dude named Sigurd, and that was it. That's
what I think. Yeah, Sigurd, right? Sigurd. So like Sigurd was like introduced at the beginning of the game with Viola, so I think okay. Now that wasn't explained to me at all. Now you said that makes sense. Sigurd was the guy who died at the beginning with Viola.
Right. That was so he had a counterpart. That was, and I looked at the bios. They actually have different first names, so that was interesting. Because the guy who died at the beginning, that Sigurd, was named Connor Sigurd, and the scientist is named Midmeyers Sigurd. Connor, it's so funny that the guy's name was Connor Sigurd at first, because he is kind of like a John Connor, because he's like the leader of a resistance. So I think that was kind of what they were getting at with that name.
And they also hinted that there was also that one boss who does the Terminator 2 send off, so it makes sense.
It totally does. Yeah. But yeah, that No Way Home segment, I call it the No Way Home segment because
it literally was a page out of the Marvel playbook. It felt like it.
It totally was. Yeah. It was cool at first, but now it's just like fan service. And Jennifer Hale still plays all of them, and it's not like I miss Helena Taylor anymore because of what happened.
No, not at all. Jennifer Hale killed it. She was really good as Bayonetta. I loved the fact they just gave her the freedom to do what she wanted with these characters. There are so many iterations of Bayonetta that she nailed.
Yes.
And there's a reason why she's iconic in her job and what she does for a career. Like, she is the go-to for this.
Yep, she's the go-to and she's the goat, you know? Love her. Love her to death. But now let's get to the cliffhanger, if you will. And this is where I was just like, are they really doing this? I understand we've been super negative throughout this video, but there's still problems we had with this story. So they essentially hinted that there's no way to interpret this in any other way. It's gotta be that they're planning for Bayonetta 4 to star Viola, or at least have her be an important character. But no, the way they ended it, she's gonna be the star of future Bayonetta games, at least one of them. Sort of like Nero and Devil May Cry, which I don't recall if that was a controversial thing among the fan base. It probably was, but I know people have warmed up to Nero, so there's that. So, the same thing could happen with Viola, but man, she didn't, to me at least, and I know might be in the minority here. Viola didn't make a great first impression to me. She was very klutzy. She's the opposite of Bayonetta, and I'm not sure if she would make a good protagonist for the main series, you know?
This is where they have the chance, though, to, fine-tune that character if they decide to do a fourth game, which I really hope they do.
Yes.
Get a better writer.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say it, but, like, that's the best thing. Or just age her up a little bit. Give her, like, 10, 15 years. Give her a little bit of a bump, and then make her a little bit more like Bayonetta. You shouldn't have to be as outlandish, but like they have a really good standing, stepping stone for the next game. There really is limitless potential with this next game if they decide to do it, right? So it's really like, where are they going to take Viola if this is what's happening? And I could see them just, giving her that base of 10, 15 years or whatever, and then her goal is to save Bayonetta in hell, so you go to hell and save your mother and your father.
Very true. I didn't even think of that possibility.
That would be cool. That would be really cool DLC at least, right? And then who knows?
Right.
Like, there really is so much potential with this series. Like, there's 100 things I could think of at least with Jean spin-offs and new Umber witches. I would love to see more witches.
Yeah, me too. What mostly concerns me about a Viola starring in her own game isn't exactly really her personality per se. What concerns me is that we come to Bayonetta. Bayonetta plays mostly the same throughout the 3 games, right? She's got her agile moves, she's got her guns, she's got her other weapons she can choose from. Viola does not play like that, at least in Bayonetta 3. She's still really good to play as, but she plays extremely differently. She's got the katana, she's got Cheshire, she's got the darts to throw at stuff, and then she's got the blocking move, which Bayonetta doesn't have. So I don't know if I'm not opposed to playing as that sort of playstyle in Bayonetta 4, but I also want them to still find a way to bring back the control scheme or like the playstyle of the character Cereza or even Jean. Bring her back. I'm still not sure what happened to her at the end of the game either.
That's the thing. They just left it.
Yeah, so she kind of just she assisted her in the final battle, and then she just disappeared. So, a lot left unexplained.
I think it was honestly set up for expansions. Like, there's no way they just end it like this because there's just so many loose threads hanging on right now. There has to be something coming down the pipeline, and to just think about it, like PG has a lot of goodwill going towards them right now. I mean, regardless of the controversy surrounding Helena Taylor. PG's a good studio. Like, they have good games. I mean, for the most part, like, I think they're a good developer. So like they've built my goodwill towards them. Like, I trust them with what they're gonna do. Is just make sure, like, I hope they can connect those threads to make something worthwhile again. It's just, that's what I'm leaving it with, for myself at least.
Yeah, that's what I'm with you there too. Because as it is, Bayonetta 3 is a great game. I gave it a liked a lot score. Yeah, it's a great, fantastic game. It's just held back from perfection, I would say, by its story. And I know, once again, people will say, you don't play Bayonetta for the story. And it's just like, you don't. That's why we're telling you, go play it. We still gave it a good review because the gameplay is still good. But when the story makes so many jarring decisions, you can't help but take notice, you know? And in the case of this, the ending is kind of whack. It's not the worst ending I've ever seen in video game history, but it's
Not by far.
Not by far. No, but it does. It kind of leaves you scratching your head by the end. Like, I'll be real. When I first beat the game, like before I started writing my review, I really had to sit down, really think about how I felt about this game because the story left such a sour taste in my mouth.
It doesn't need to be messy. That's the thing. Like, narratively, like, there's so much lore they could pull in and make it, worth experiencing the story. And instead, they have all this knowledge and lore they can use, and instead they just don't want to use it. They want to focus on the gameplay, which is, to them, that's their thing, right? Their bread and butter is amazing mechanics and gameplay and, stylish battles. Great. I don't know. There's just they need to find someone who can dissect the lore and implement it in a way that Bayonetta is, cohesively narrative and fits the gameplay style. I mean, look at Nier Automata or Devil May Cry 5. Like, I know less so Devil May Cry, but for the most part, the story does make sense. It lines up well with the characters, and like the gameplay is the best it's ever been. They're just missing someone who can bridge the gap between the gameplay and the narrative. Like, that's my biggest thing. And like, I know story's not everything, because we obviously Bayonetta 3 is more mechanically better than anything. It's just why can't they have both? Why don't they do both? Like, they have this great team that can do both. It's just time to start implementing it, as seen by previous games they've worked on. It's a matter of time, I think, with them. I think as they're growing, they'll start doing things differently. Like, I mean, who knows what they're up to now? There's still
For sure
a lot of time for them to grow.
Yeah, there is a lot of time. And if they spent a lot of time focusing on the gameplay and less on the story, I forgive that, because the gameplay is so good.
So good. It's so good. It's just so, but I know there's complaints with like performance, but for me it was really smooth. Like, I loved playing the game. It was in handheld mode, it was like a dream for me. It was just reactive. It was
the performance issues aren't anything to like really destroy the game, like Gotham Knights or something. It's no Gotham Knights. It's I just hope the next Nintendo console's backwards compatible and increases performance of backwards compatible games.
I really hope so. I really, really hope so as well, because this game deserves to be played on a big screen. 60 frames, 120 frames if you can do it. It is a really good action game. It's not as refined as, say, Devil May Cry, but I mean, it's close enough that it's enjoyable.
For sure. But thank you so much for joining me on this discussion, Bobby. Let us know where we can find you on the social medias, on the website you write for. Spill the beans.
You can follow me at B Pashalidis on Twitter, at Console Creature on Twitter, and consolecreatures.com.
Very nice, very nice. All right, be sure to check him out there, everyone. But we want to hear from you now. How did you feel about the ending of Bayonetta 3? Let us know in the comments, and check out the videos on the right for more topics you might be interested in. But until next time, bye.